My last sentence was 7 years down in a Melbourne jail for bank robbery down there. I'm living proof that you start in the basement and you can work your way to the penthouse.
Everyone expects me, basically. I'm not only boys, just generally. I'll be dead by the time I was 17, 18, 19. I just started turning it around.
Firstly, let me welcome Nader Hamdan. It's good to see you, brother.
No, good to be back. Good to be back with you guys.
Yeah. Well, I've just got to say, last time I saw you, I was watching my TV at home, and your big smiling face popped up with your son winning the fight on the Timzoo undercard.
Yeah, it was a proud moment. My son won the Australian title. I think it's like under a handful of father and son combinations in Australian boxing to do that. So, very proud moment.
Yeah. No, it was good. It was a good fight, and you don't smile much, but you had a smile on your face that day.
I couldn't but smile.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Must be a proud time.
Very.
Our other guest here today is Jeffrey Morgan. Now, Jeff, welcome back to Eye Catch Killers.
Thanks for having me again, guys, and congratulations to your son, Nader, and you should be a proud father, brother.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. You couldn't get a better photo of you and your son at that point in time.
That's natural feelings.
Yeah, just magic.
So,
that's what life's about.
Thank you.
Hey, Jeff, not last time I saw you, we've caught up a fair bit since then, but I have a bit of laugh thinking about the time I saw you down in Canberra. I'd been invited down to this Swish hotel to do a keynote, and you were the host.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Who would have thought? And the boy from Redfern was holding host to Gary jumping up on stage and having a conversation. And it's just, and it was all around leadership, mind you, too. So it just shows you that no matter where you come from within your life, you can do anything and everything, and you circle changes when you change yourself, and I think that was just a magical moment for myself as well. Yeah,
it was pretty special for me. I think we shocked the audience when we talked about what would have happened if we met each other 10 years ago. Congratulations. Yeah, you've spent 18 years, I think, all up inside, and here you are hosting. And there was a lot of impressive people there, and you're hosting the whole seminar about leadership.
We do a lot around leadership, high performance habits and rituals, your mental health and well-being, building resilience in spaces, and definitely a lot around your mindset, where you're at and how you'd like to obviously change that, the gaps in between.
Helping the individuals.
And I think that shows you, right? And just, I can't get it out there enough. Believe in yourself and what you're doing. If you've got a passion for anything, just follow it to its utmost. And you look at what you've done, Gaz, for yourself after the career you've had, and I think that's same thing impressive. Nader has passed it on to his son. I'm living proof that you start in the basement and you can work your way to the penthouse, and that journey, whether it's your feelings, your emotions, just life in general, I'm living it on my terms around what I love doing, and that's what ends up happening. So that's hopefully some inspiration to somebody somewhere to start their journey.
And Nader, what about yourself? You're doing some trying to get people to steer their lives in the right direction?
But I've just brand new type of role for me, about you getting into schools. I've always done this as far as my own thing, talking to you guys always relate to me, always reach out to me, so I've done that. Now I'm getting into schools and hopefully just show them the choices. It's just, I call it choices, and them doing the right thing.
That's what you call in your program?
I call it choices. Yeah, because it's important. It's up to you. It's a choice you make, where it takes you where you're going to go.
Making the right choices.
Yep.
Love it.
I think stories of redemption, and how the three of us are sitting here today is after we caught up, Nader, and we did caught up and did a podcast on Eye Catch Killers. We got to talking about the way you turned your life around. 3 years in juvenile detention, and your life was heading off track, and you turned your life around and wanting to put something back into society.
It's up to the individual. It was up to me. I said no. I would turn my back on that old life and old friends and move forward in following my dreams. So a lot of guys don't know how to do that. A lot of guys don't know how to say no to the old crew, to the boys. Absolutely. You got to be a leader. You got to step up and do what you want to do for yourself.
That is such an important message, and that brought us to that meeting the three of us had at the cafe about what could be done, and it virtually led to us sitting down here today. But when I was chatting with you, I said, well, let's reach out to Jeff, because I know that's the type of stuff Jeff's been doing, and it was a pretty positive conversation, wasn't it? I came away from it inspired.
And it comes down to what Nate said. A lot of people, you've got to be so strong. One thing I know, for those that don't know, Nader and I was actually locked up during that period in boys' homes together, and the discipline he had there then transferred into what he ended up choosing as a career, a great boxing career, and one that made me proud to know such a human. And we're good friends to this day. We catch up, we have dinner, we've got a bunch of mates that have all gone through that journey and all said no to other people, whether it's the money, whether it's the lifestyle. To be able to say no, I now realised, and that's what I took into my business and teach global businesses, how to say no to a particular situation that's going to impact you as an individual, whether it's your emotions, your feelings, how you operate, more productive, more proactive, and you lose that function because you're choosing a destructive pathway. Yeah. And to say no, people don't realise, whether we've been through that world, that's a powerful tool. To be able to say no to the vices, maybe it's weight loss for yourself, stop eating the foods you want, maybe it's not showing up to the business that you own, maybe it's not showing up to the workplace that you're in because of a self-limiting behaviour, thought and belief, and it's the ability to say no and the power of that. So I respect Nader and that journey that he had.
I suppose with Nader, and we'll wind it back a little bit, because people are going to be listening to you two think, well, what have you done? So let's wind it back. You were both heading in the wrong direction. Now, Nader, you copped a 3-year sentence in juvenile detention, and by your own admissions, you're an angry man at that stage.
But I did 3.5 years in juvenile from Yasmata Minda to carry on. Then I was put in Minda, a place called Patterson, Southwest, 12 in the state, because of my aggression and punching on and just kicking shit out of people, just the way it is. I was an angry young guy, yes I was.
And that's, you sort of owned, well, not sort of, you owned it and said you grew up in a good family.
Great family.
Background is that Syrian and Lebanese?
Yeah, Syrian, Lebanese, yes.
And Muslim?
Yep, yes. Muslim,
and
yes.
You were angry?
Just angry, man. Just mate, I was bullied as a kid. Just one day it came to I just cracked it. I snapped at it. Hammered some people that really put pressure on me, and I was only a kid, and just from there I just grew into a monster and hammered anybody, and everybody looked at me basically.
So and that's what you had to take away from your life. Otherwise you would have. And I think when you're in the boys' homes, like people were saying, you're gonna be here for the rest of your life or die in jail.
Everyone expected me. Yeah, basically I'm not only boys' homes, just generally I'll be dead by the time I was 17, 18, 19. Yeah. I just turned it around, man. And back then there was back in the 90s, it was many places you can go and fight, many colour gangs, many this, many that, many groups. You're never short of a fight.
Okay. And, well, your story is that you ended up as a professional boxer, fought for 2 world titles, and, a reputation and a career to be proud of.
Yeah, so, I travelled the world, fought everywhere, fought everyone. I followed my dream. I gave my best.
And stayed out of trouble. Turned it completely around.
What made you change it? What?
Man, it was basically I get out and I die or go to jail, or I travel the world and do what I wanted to do and fight the best and be the best I can be. And just...
For young kids that are angry now, that watch maybe this, or people that watch this that have anger, what would be the advice? What's the one lesson, if you were to leave to the planet today, what would you give to them?
Believe in yourself. Yeah. Believe in yourself. Turn your back on whatever it is that you think is it's crap, and follow your dreams. Do what you want to do. Don't worry about who you lose. It's like when I first got out of the boys' home, I had a lot of things offered to me. I turned my back on a lot of people. A lot of people were angry. But these same people saw these guys for real. They were my biggest fans in the end. So
the ones that wanted to drag you back into the lifestyle eventually started to respect you.
Eventually respect and came around to the fights and supported me. So it's just, mate, you got to stand up for yourself. Don't be scared to say no. You know what I mean?
So what message would you get across to a young fella who's angry as you were?
Mate, I tell them to channel it in the right way. Everyone has a path. My one was I was involved into a lot of street fights. I love fighting. I love aggression. I love violence. At that particular time in my life, I went to boxing. Boxing is obviously a big different to discipline to just a street fight. I learned that the hard way, but and just channel it. Channel your aggression, channel whatever is the madness into something that you love. For me, it was boxing. Some guys might be football. Some guys might be a trade. Could be any trade. Head down and just work. Do you give it your best?
I would imagine that anger, but that you're a tough guy. You want to take someone on. You are a tough guy. You don't have to
I don't know
convince
about
us.
that, but yeah, anyway.
Do you? I'd say you're a tough guy.
Thanks.
But is there a message to? There's always someone tougher, isn't there?
100%. There's
so
always someone tougher.
What are they going to prove? It's just going to go down the.
It's just a
rabbit hole.
merry-go-round, man. But until it catches up to you the wrong way, I turn my back on that life, and I could have been one of the guys that got shot. I could have been a guy that got hit by a car or stabbed or whatever it may be. So I made my choice to walk away from that. I could have been one of those guys doing 20, 30, 40 years in jail now.
Well, your life, that situation where you belted the police officer and took his gun, you could have been dead on the
Would have been
street
dead there, right there and then. So,
Crazy.
yeah. So, so I just wanted to do better for myself, and also my parents supported me when I was in boys' homes. In boys, when you're locked away, you know who your friends are. There's no friends. Your family and blood support you. Obviously, there is friends, but I'm just saying to you, the family going to be there for you. They're the ones that suffer. Your mother especially. I saw my mother suffer for years, so my parents both suffered. So I just wanted to make it up to them.
Okay. Now, Jeff, your journey. You grew up in Redfern.
Yeah, grew up in good old Everley Street, mate.
Okay, talk us briefly about that, and then your path down the life of crime.
Yeah, basically Everley Street, one of the most notorious streets in Australia's history for the wrong reasons, running riots with the police, and just normal toxic behaviours, badge of honour to go to jail, all of the above. Catch up and meet with a friend to go out and rob a bank, and by the end of it I'd served, my last sentence was 7 years down in a Melbourne jail for bank robbery down there, and it was 20 years to the date, Gaz, last Tuesday since my last arrest, so bit of an anniversary that I'm proud of.
Congratulations.
And, like to me, like Nade's just got to say no, the money seemed good, but when I sat with myself and said, is this what I truly want out of my life? I look at it and go, you're kidding yourself, mate. This is a joke. No one comes to visit you, like Nade said. My family didn't even come, Nade, for me. So, it just made me realise if I wanted to change, it was on me. And that's where, the change happened. And I just, for me, I knew I got all the backlash from my community. I moved out of the community at the time, and everyone was calling me every name under the sun. Same people now saying, because of you, I got off drugs and I see my kids every day. Because of you, I got a job. Because of you, I finished a uni degree. So it gave our community a belief that if someone could do it, we all could do it, and that, that's powerful. And I just wanted to touch on the last conversation with Nades too. I don't read much in regards to anything unless it's relative to what I'm doing as a business and a person in my life. But an article come up about Fight Club in schools, Nades, and there's a lot of kids now recording these fights in the schools. And like for me, the simplest solution is put the phones away before they go in, and that they can't record it. They upload it to social media. Get kids to put their phones away before they come in every single day.
Yep.
But it's so. To be able to harness that and flip yourself, I've got nothing but respect for it, because I know how hard it was for me to say no, and no doubt you to say no as well. So I see you, brother, and I'm proud of you.
Well, I can see the mutual respect, and I've got to say, looking at the childhoods you had and the points you're at in your life, from a police perspective, I would have been looking at you guys and going, there's not much hope here. I know where this path is going to go. I'm either going to lock you up at some stage, or I'm going to be standing over your dead body that something's come unstuck. So why is it that, and this is the discussion that flowed on from the cafe when we met up, that you guys speaking to people at that stage of their life where their life could go in one direction or the other, what do you think you can bring to the table by speaking to them?
Okay.
I always use myself as an example, my story as an example, and give them hope, give them real. When they see someone that that they can relate to, it makes a big difference. That's why I like to go to juvenile justice centres. I like to go to schools, and I speak to troubled youth, and I explain to them my story, and then they kind of just straight away, they know, wow, this guy, like I tell them, in school, how the police got me, they surrounded the school hall as I was doing my exam, my middle year exam, and they came in and got me while my head was down in an exam. So, yeah, that happened in front of the youth. So when I speak to the youth and I tell them, listen, this is where it was, these kids straight away relate to me, and then they respect that. Then I'll explain to them the boys' homes and how difficult boys' homes could be, being away from family and all that kind of stuff, and what, we see some evil shit happening in boys' homes. So I explain that stuff to them and makes them take notice, and hopefully they take something good away from it where they still got an opportunity to change, and they all do. They're young, so they do.
I suppose it's better than having someone that hasn't lived that life experience that you guys have, trying to tell them how to live their life. At least you can stand there and say, this is the path I walked, and this is the lessons I learned. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and as Nate said, it becomes so relatable, so their ears prick up. No one wants to have a conversation with someone that doesn't have a conversation that they don't want to listen to. So if I'm talking about sewing to a group of boxers, they'll be like, what are we doing here today? And unless there's a conversation behind that, maybe it's about teaching them patience in the ring, then they start to say, oh wow, all right, and how, wait to the end of the fight, there's going to be a world title fight, might go to 10 rounds, and so then it might be a different conversation. So to these kids, they hear something from people that have been through it, their ears prick up, they sit there and they start to listen, and I find that every time we go out as well. And then you're basically saying, how are you built? Is it serving you? Do you truly feel what you want to feel? When you go home and lay your head down on that pillow at night, are you feeling the emotions that you truly want in your life? And then if it is destructive towards your life and they're going to surround a school hall, is it constructive? And then they break it down and say, no, it's not. And so how could you replicate that? You got anger, you're great at fighting, why don't you go and talk to Nader or talk to somebody in boxing and use the skills to travel the world and do something that you actually love? And it's just being able to transfer the skills they do have into a space that allows them to see a different way to life. And
you're speaking there with a lot of emotional intelligence. Is that something the kids would buy into if you got the opportunity to speak to them?
Absolutely. And you've got to speak on a level where they understand it, guys, because it's like talking, to NASA. You're talking NASA science projects to young kids that it's just disconnecting, right? So how do you bring that down to a street level where they understand it and they can come into the conversation? And most importantly, I try and get them to engage in that conversation by knowing what the benefit and value of the conversation is to them, because it's not about me talking, it's about them listening and taking away the gift that you're giving them.
Nader, you actually got the opportunity, the school that you were arrested at when police surrounded the school, you got the opportunity to go back and speak to your school. That must have been a weird experience.
It's a huge buzz. They contacted me and the school that done everything it could to get rid of me, to get me out of there, contacted me to come back. It was a pretty huge buzz for me personally, and I went there to have a chat to the. It was a sports awards for the youth that really done well in sports. Huge buzz. It was a huge buzz.
Yeah. You're at that point where you're starting to get invites to speak to schools.
Yeah, I've been going to a local high school now for a couple of weeks, talking to youth. I've got a little program going there, which I'll call Choices. Yep. And every week it's a different topic, and just like we're talking about, they giving young guys things to think about, and there's a lot of Q&A involved in this thing where we just give and take, and it's going well. I'm pretty happy with it, and the young guys are connecting really well with me, so it's great.
Do you get the sense they're buying into it?
They're buying into it. It's got a group of right now is about 12, so I'm not talking like the whole year or to the whole class. I'm talking to specifically chosen kids that have been singled out by the year advisors
that might benefit by
the guys that are at risk of getting in trouble. They feel outside of school or in school, and having a chat to them, sharing my story, doing some Q&As with them, and just going through different subjects that they can relate to.
That's the thing, isn't it? It mightn't be required for everyone. Like some people have that good upbringing, surround them, people that point them in the right direction. But I know that was something that you hit on, Nader. You wanted to get at that 10% that are going off in the wrong direction, and they're the ones that you think you can make a difference to.
Well, all we can do is do our best, and like I said, I went in there and they relate to me straight away. As soon as I explained my story, they're up, their eyes are beaming. They know this guy's real. This guy's not a whatever. He's not a uni whatever. And nothing against those guys, but just they want to relate to somebody. They want to talk to somebody that's been there, done that.
Come in with the real stories.
Come in with the real things, you know. So no, it's been good. I'm enjoying it myself. So just going to reach out to many other schools, hopefully. See how we go.
And
Love that. Awesome.
Jeff, your stuff. You've been going in and speaking to people. What sort of vibe are you picking up?
Yeah, I just travel across the country, and we work with everyone from school kids to corporates, and I should say globally now. And I understood when I changed my life how I was built as a human being and how I seen things. I had to correct that perception that I had built within myself, and that allowed me to start to step into a different space and create change for me. And then I realised I started going into Aboriginal communities, obviously for me very important. And then over time I realised that all human beings had stress, heartache, pain. They wanted more out of life. They were lost within life. These different components, and that's basically been magical for myself. And I think Nade's hit on something. One of the biggest things, as much as we can talk about leadership or resilience or whatever it is that dealing with stress, in amongst the workshops, it's the Q&As from the individual who has that missing component or gap within their life, and that allows us to be very powerful. But I say to Nades, just keep going down the pathway. If there's any advice to Nades who's just starting out, reach out, have a conversation with him, because these questions and these programs that I did with people over time has changed and saved lives. And the messages that you get in the background. You saved my life, you pointed my life in the right direction. And I'm not talking about people that have been locked up, people. I'm talking about corporates at a high-end level where maybe work-life balance isn't there, their relationship has broken down, and all of a sudden they have the realisation all their focus was one place, their workplace, and they forgot about their wife and family, and all of a sudden that balance is back and they're starting to rebuild what they used to have. And you ask yourself, how much is that worth? And what Nader could do to a young kid and point him in a different direction could actually save somebody's life. As you know, with a police officer, a kid punching someone could end up fall back, hit your head on the gutter, and life's over. What if that kid comes across Nader's program, sits with him for 5 minutes, Nader's able to answer his questions, help him regulate his emotions, build his emotional IQ, and then the choice comes where someone says, hey mate, you want to have a go? And if I go, see you later, I'm going home, and keeps walking. And
well, that's the things, isn't it? It's a ripple effect. If you can make the difference to just one kid's life, it makes everything you're doing worthwhile.
100%.
And if you could get the toughest kid in the school, or the most feared, or whatever it is, and be able to flip that kid into boxing, maybe, all of a sudden they go, far out. Joe Bloggs is so calm now, and he's actually been able to regulate his emotion. He's not fighting. It might filter through the whole school. How much is that worth, honestly?
And they will listen to you, Nader, and that's when we're having that chat first up that both me and Jeff said to you how much respect you got, because what you achieved in your sport, in a tough sport, and never underestimate that. You're a humble guy, and you don't like sort of putting your hand up to it, but people go, Jesus, the real deal. Guys, you're also from what I would call marginalised groups of people. You've come from your Indigenous background. You've had to wear the biases against a Muslim group of people, Syrian, Lebanese, and that. And you have young fellas there, and I'm sure you can see them, that would be angry because they feel like they've been not victimised, but picked on because of their background.
Yes, I've spoken to these guys individually, yes.
And what's the sort of message you pass on to them?
Mate, I pass on to them, mate, it's easy. It's you angry, you go out and lash out in the street or carry on, you're falling into, that's what they want. That's how I got to get to them. That's what they want. But you know what? I try and push them to the point of rise above this shit and do something, smash it in terms of a trade, the sport, whatever it may be. You can rise above it, be a leader, and be a role model for your mates and the younger guys. So I come from that angle with those guys, And a couple of guys, they look at it and say, yeah, man, you're right. Okay, you want to fall into that trap, you want to go to jail, be exactly what they want you to be, that's up to you, man.
Yeah,
The
well,
choice is yours.
It's a way of beating them by putting yourself above that.
The choice is yours, or step up.
Good.
So thankfully they're understanding and they're doing the right stuff.
Good message. Jeff, Indigenous communities now,
Yeah,
they would have seen too many of the young Jeff Morgans going,
Absolutely.
okay, we've seen this kid before, your life's going to be in and out of prison, and here you turn up, dressed pretty flash too, isn't he? Just by the way.
This son came in here just like this.
I mean, he puts us both to shame. Like, he's a flash
Oh,
dresser
man.
now. Yeah, showing us both.
GQ over here, man.
Okay, we were going to give it to you.
I definitely.
Had to. They appreciate those
I
people
got
get the
into
ball rolling.
this last time we ever catch up with these two. Let me tell you. But like, yeah, for me, same thing. I want to be the role model that says we don't have to dress this way, we don't have to talk this way. One thing I will say with our community, and this is for the best race on this planet is the human race, Gary, when we all get on with each other, right? Respect, love, kindness, empathy. My mother taught me, walk in the door, walk out the door. That's how you treat humans. If we can do that as fellow Australians towards fellow Australians, no colour, no race involved, then who doesn't want to live in a harmonious space and a happier space, right? And the best way to do that is seek to understand the conversation. Watch the Australian Wars, watch The Last Order, start to understand that they were the settlers' journals, there's no argument there, and then it wasn't taught in a space, and we've come out of that and people have judgment through what's going on, and it's just lack of understanding from both sides. Bring that into a peaceful conversation. And then I say to our community, because the focus was the external, internal versus external. Internal, you control; external, you can't control the weather, as an example. But focusing on and blaming anything else other than yourself means that we give the control away, as Nade said. So it's about what I do as an Aboriginal man when I step in this space or step in any space. I say, wow, he's Aboriginal, I thought, and that's that unconscious bias. I thought he'd be a drunk, or I thought he'd be locked up, or I thought he'd be X, Y, and Z. And I want to be a role model towards, no, this is what we could do if we set our mind to it. And if I can do it, we've built so much resilience behind the projections over time towards Aboriginal community. And I say, grab that resilience and walk out into the world, and you'll be a great leader, because you're tough enough to handle the stuff that comes your way. And you can't get any tougher than having constantly to walk out your door and put on a brave face and a strong shield to what the world projects as, towards an Aboriginal person. But the best way to do that is just be the best version of yourself, and it'll slowly change the perception of our community.
And we got to own the fact that we've all got our unconscious biases, haven't we? And it's really it's born from ignorance, not understanding. Okay, you're an Aboriginal guy. I've heard about Aboriginals, and you're a Muslim. All right, I know what's going on there. So we've all got to check ourselves on it. It's not just you guys putting yourself above it. It's the way that people look at...
Huge.
Yeah.
Mainstream media. I went to Dubai and I was flying through Dubai on a overseas working holiday. And as I went through Dubai, my perception was that it was going to be very strict and, Arabic country and all of the above based on what I'd heard and been told. And I have to say that it was just the total opposite. And that was that unconscious bias because of what I'd heard, I'd taken on. And I get there and there's mosques everywhere, but the people were unbelievably beautiful and welcoming. And we have this perception as dangerous, watch out, Middle East. I'm about to head to Egypt, same principle, There's a space in Egypt, obviously there's some fighting there, but it's the unconscious bias that really stops us in life. I might not have gone to Dubai in the past or even in that region, and now I'm going back through that region, and other friends have done the same things in different countries, including Iran, but the perception be like, you're crazy, why are you going there? And I think until we take that out and we start to learn things or see things ourselves that are factual, just like, court case goes, you can't come to court and say, I believe Jeff robbed the bank. And, well, you got any evidence? Goes, no, I don't, but I know it was him. Well, see you later, throw it out.
Well, I think it's powerful. I'm getting a lot, and I'm throw this question over to you blokes. Just the fact that, from where you've come from, where we all come from, and what I did for a living, the fact that we're sitting down and we're mates and chatting, it's a little bit weird, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And people, like, even that, coming from that world, people say, I had to get to a point, I don't know how Nades feels about this, but the perception of going near a copper.
Yeah.
Mate, firstly, we're on a path to change people's lives, and it's not about talking about the past or anything of that nature. To clarify that to anybody, that would be the criminal world's perception. Why are they around coppers, Nader and Jeff? But the reality is we're just trying to change or save lives, man, and I see that you're down a path where you're trying to share stories that help bring that to light, and that's where we ended up in this position, even talking about what could we do to impact young kids within the community. And I think that's powerful, like that, and it's the power of saying no to everything else and saying yes to yourself. And you don't have to, in that world, if their perception is you're crossing a line, to me, to be able to let that go and say there's no line to be crossed, because all I'm doing is helping a young kid, not be me or Nader, and serve 3 years, serve 18 years. Yeah. You ask any blokes from the old world, is that what you really promote?
Well, I think, and I know with the different people I've had on the podcast, that people would be, the cops would be going, how come you're speaking to those guys? But it breaks down that barrier, and I'm sure you get some response, well, what are you doing speaking to that cop? And Nader, the crew that you ran in with years ago, wouldn't have taken...
One of my cornermen is a detective.
Yeah.
And he's a great guy. Police is like us. If I'm doing nothing wrong, got nothing to worry about. We're going to be like normal people. If you're doing nothing wrong, you got nothing to worry about. You can walk, people are like, man, what's he doing in your corner? I go, it's one of my closest mates.
Yeah.
He's a gentleman. What's wrong? And then,
sends out a good message, doesn't
but
it?
he's a cop. I go, are you doing anything wrong? Then they look, I go, no, well, you got nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
And that's
spreading the word,
simple,
isn't it?
Simple.
Showing that you judge people on how you find them.
And each to their own goes. If you still want to live that life, that's up on you. I'm not here to tell you what an individual what to do with their life, but we're at a point where we've changed our lives, and we do want to help young kids or human beings see a better way to life. And that's the whole message. When Nades talks about a detective that was his cornerman, that's just another human for a purpose of boxing, right? But people say, oh, what's Nader maybe doing here, with that person? That's the old thought process, and that's the old world for us. We're just thinking, mate, I want to get an outcome in boxing. I want to change a kid's life and not let them serve 18 years in jail. And I ask the hardest criminal, even in this day and age, would you promote a young kid who's coming up through there to come into your world or step out of that world? And I know the answer. You've had people on here that, even when I was growing up, they were tough criminals. They were very well known. And they'd say the same thing, I'd point a kid in a different direction.
Well, I think naysayers might throw in that, it's all very well and good to try and help these kids, and but they get enough anyway. People don't understand where some of these kids have come from or what's driving them at the time. You're Nader, I think, a classic, but your upbringing was fine, but you were just angry.
Just me, yeah.
And we've all got those. We can all go off the track for different reasons. I think it's important to get that message across. But in doing what you guys are doing is changing one life, 2 lives, or whatever. It's making a hell of a difference.
Well, we just try our best using our own life as an example. I don't have to read out of a book. When I go see these young guys at the schools, I take nothing with me. I'm just speak from experience, things they can relate to and places they've been and their family upbringing, like for instance, local schools, similar family situations. So the kids, thankfully, have been it's been great. They've been enjoying it. And I throw a bit of fitness in there, make them. I throw a bit of fitness towards the end of the class, make them do some sit-ups, push-ups, some planking, maybe some boxing. So we'll see how that goes.
And none of which is a bad thing. A little bit of fitness and
the
whole package. I think in this room we'd all agree that a little bit of fitness helps with the mental health and
100%.
Everything else. So, do you think people are buying into it? Like, it's clearly the schools are getting you in, so they're seeing the benefits of it?
I feel, yes, I feel, and I've reached out to a couple other schools and waiting on replies. So And I'd like to take it to juvenile justice centres as well, being a former guy that did time in the boys' homes, where a lot of guys in there feel it's over for them. They can't. When they get out, because that's how a lot of young guys think in there. They've got nothing left. They're in there.
What would you be your message?
My message is I was you. We were you. Look at us now.
Yeah.
I had that question the other day. Why didn't you stop then when you were young? I said, I didn't have me sitting in front of you. And so my advice to yourself is you've got someone who's giving you the tools, the strategies, the ideas, the tips to divert your life. I didn't have that person. Jeff Fennick was probably the closest that came to it. He was world champion, came into Yasma at the time, but as much as I didn't know his story, nor did I know how to get into it. So when he came in age, I was like, I'm going to be the next big thing. I loved boxing back then too. I loved fighting growing up in the area. And I went, I'm going to be the next best thing. But once I left, I walked up here, just up the road, funnily enough, Newtown Police Boys Club was there at the time. Johnny Lewis, Peter Matreski, all of them were there training. And I felt embarrassed to walk in. Yeah, and that's because I had a criminal record. I'm a criminal and stuff of that nature. So how do you... that's something I learned and said, how can I teach these young kids to get past that and walk in that? I was at the door of the gym watching them.
Well, that's interesting because that Nader's journey was, you were inspired by Jeff Fennick's book that you read in juvenile detention. And there you go. There's two lives.
And Rocky, trust me. I think he had a poster up when we were there.
And Rocky.
Right.
Boxing and Rocky.
I defy anyone not to be inspired by Rocky. But anyway.
I was running upstairs.
All right, we're all guilty of that.
Yep.
But look at the parallels of the life. There's Nader, juvenile, but you didn't go to prison. You changed your life after that because you embraced it and you actually walked into the gym.
What got you to walk into the gym? Because I went there and I stopped. I was like, I'm not good enough. I'm not, So what got you?
I wanted to. I went in there and I got my ass outboxed.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. A street fight is different to a boxing
absolutely.
fight. Street fight, I can grab a guy and just maul him. In a boxing fight, there's gloves on, and there's rules.
Damn those rules.
There's rules, man. I go, what the hell is this? And this little guy is in front of me, it's tick, 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 bouncing around me, just touching me up. I go, wow, man, look at this. I could be one. Most guys will just say F this and walk out and never come back. I said, man, I got to do this. No, man, this is.
Well, that's that sliding door moment.
That's it.
You've knocked on, or you've gone to walk in, got intimidated, turned.
Literally.
How many more years did you do inside after that?
Oh, man, probably another 15 years or something.
So what the difference that might have been if you...
And it's just a lack of belief. And the kids, some come from a background, a community, a home, usually in a family home. You won't do this. Yeah, or you think about life as well. Teachers then, especially for these kids, don't do that. They go into some other place, sporting team. They're kicking, they're climbing on things. Don't do that. So by the time they get to 16, they're like, don't do that. Is sitting within yourself. And you're like, I don't even believe. So I got to that gym door. I'm watching them all warm up, spar or whatever. And I'm like, oh, no way, I can't do this. And I walked off. And it was because of what I took from the community, what I took from the family home, what I took from apparent role models, which I didn't have. And I just went, I can't do it. And I stepped out.
A message I think that comes across loud and clear from both you guys is you can turn your life around. You can take control of your life.
It's up to you, man. It's up to you. It's an individual thing. Now I'm going to do it for you. You've got to do it for yourself.
I get people during our workshops, quick, simple one goes, circle, put yourself in the middle, little dot, and what are you built as? And you've got to be so brutally honest and you've got to be vulnerable, and it's very hard because what happens is you're unpacking what I call your invisible backpack, your trauma, your bad habits, your destructive nature and so forth, and then look at it and say, all right, how do I start to work on all these things? You might unpack one thing, you might unpack 100 things. Grab one thing and just work on that. When that's better, work on the next one, and so forth. Whether it's the lack of belief, self-limiting behaviours and thoughts, and then go your values, your morals, your beliefs, and start to rebuild those over time. Just like
it's showing one step at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's over. You have 100 things there, guys, or even 10. And you think, this is going to take me years to do. I'm going to not walk in the gym like Nader has. All I need to do is one thing, walk into the gym today, and as much as it didn't work out for him, it actually did. Realistically, it got him going, and that's the one habit at a time mentality, and that allows you to change and shift out of this mentality, create a better reality.
Kids going wrong. Why do kids go wrong, Jeff?
I think it starts in the family home, the role modelling from that space, and then it goes into the environments that they put themselves in at that point. Maybe it's school for Nader, something happens there. Maybe it's in a family home somewhere else that they go to, or something of that nature that sets that person or individual off. So to sit down and seek to understand the individual, then we start to say, all right, now we have identified why he's angry, why he's stressed, why he's not feeling loved. Sometimes even the richest homes, I work with these high-end corporate companies, and what I find is the kids don't feel loved or cared for, but the parent will be thinking, I'm giving them everything they want. Maybe it's a Ferrari as an example, beautiful home.
Superficial.
Yeah, but they're not there they just want a hug, they want to be loved. And once we break that down and get people to understand that, and on the other end of the scale, helping these families that are broken at the base level, they don't have, they just pass on their best journey into life, and there's no values, morals, beliefs, boundaries on stuff, and that just gets passed on to the kid. And
that's why they'll be put into the kids. What about you, Nader?
I don't look at it from the family point of view, family home. I look at it more out movies, pop, the music, social media, living up to something they're not, or wanting to be something they're not.
Glorifying gangsters,
all that kind of stuff. So I look at it from that point of view.
And you think that type of stuff has
that really rubs
influence.
off on young guys. That really rubs off on these young guys. Or the hype, the media, the sensationalism. These young guys look up to these guys.
They're saturated in that type.
And right now, there's a lot of stuff in the news. These guys think, "Wow, look at that! I want to be like that." So.
Okay,
it comes down to environments, right?
It's another angle, yeah.
Watching a movie, listening to songs around particular people.
It's movies.
All of those.
It's movies. It's music. It's the culture. It's wanting to be, and then the young kid wants to be something. There it is. That's what they want to do.
Okay, that's interesting. I think you're right there. Do you think a message to kids, whether it's young fellas or girls, that the impact that their crimes and what they're doing has on their victims? Like, Nader, you were violent, so there had to be a victim at the end of your rage. Jeff, robbing banks, there's victims there. Do you think pointing out to the kids that could be, and I think one of you guys said before we put the mics on, it could have been your grandmother, that type of thing.
And that for me was how I started to shift, because I was like, would you like that to be done to your grandmother, your mother? And then I had kids. I was like, what if your kids were in the bank robbery? What if your kids or your parents, being as going through the struggle they had, if someone stole their car or someone robbed them in any way, shape or form? And I never stopped to think about it, guys. I was in survival mode, and as I started the emotional IQ I was building, I'd unpacked that myself in that circle, and I started to look at it. I'd actually pause for a moment, slowed it down to speed it up, and I went, far out, is that what I'm doing to people? Are you really like that? If you can survive this way, and I had great qualities underneath, determination, perseverance, why can't you transfer from destructive to constructive, and what would happen? Let's walk through the door like Nader did, and let's see what happens. And next thing, it's a global business. So, that to everybody out there, I say to yourself, how would you feel if that was your own mother? And it's funny, I think that flipped me when I was in custody. They asked me this question, goes, you got kids, Jeff? I said, yeah, we're doing something. I think it was violence prevention program in Victoria. And she said, if your kid gets kidnapped, who are you calling? I said, I'll call myself. Tough, and I'll sort that out. And they go, you really think that would be it? You'd work it out. There'd probably be someone from a path you wouldn't even cross. They'd be someone you wouldn't know. And then you're thinking about it, you're sitting there going, would the police get involved? Of course, you want your kid to be found. And then I started to flip, and it made me see things differently. What about now? If someone does something to your kid, are you going to go to the police, or are you going to sort it out? You can sort it out, but do you reckon your your other kid's going to be happy that you're serving 20 plus years in jail because you went and dealt out justice? And it blew my mind, because I'd never thought on that level, Gaz.
Yeah, little things like that, breaking it down. But I think those, if you got barriers like you're talking, dragging the police in there and different parts, and there's consequences to your actions, isn't there? That's
100%. 100% consequences.
You're seeing it in the news. You're seeing in the news that kids are. When I say kids, it's teenagers or youth crime, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Is there anything the police can do to win this back, or is there anything the police are doing wrong, Nader?
I think as far as what the police doing wrong lately, it's just been a whole lot of overreacting to certain situations that have been highly publicised, and that the young guys are already a bit cautious of the police. When I see coppers shooting, tasering old people and bashing other people in the news, that loses a lot of respect. A lot of respect.
A lot of respect from the
From the young guys, especially those guys. Given they just no respect at all.
Okay, that's interesting, and I do understand where you're coming from. Like if you're watching it the way it plays out in the media, and if police have used excessive force, it doesn't.
We're told when we grow up that the police are your friends. The police are there for you to help you. Something's wrong, call the police. Look at it now. Lately the media's been what's been on the news has been the coppers actually rough, really putting out some rough justice. Tasering an old lady, bashing a guy or a girl hanging out of a car.
It's not a good look, is it?
Not a good look at all for the police. And I'm not saying they're all like that because I know many. So
yeah, and I think that's an important. Having come from a police officer mentality, that there's good and bad, but where you're seeing that excessive force being used or violence, it's not a good look, and I can understand that's why it turns people. It turns people against police. We don't want to be like we are in America, where there is just a passionate hate for police.
They're out of control there, and you see it all the time.
Crazy.
So
and it makes the police job harder, because if there's no respect, it just sort of escalates. So an important point. What about you?
Mine's the trust. You want to be able to trust anybody in a relationship, and as Nate said, you grow up as young kids. The police might come to the school, and here's who you call, and your parents tell you that, or someone of value within your life that you're growing up with. And the trust from the community to the person. I'm in a relationship with this female. I cheat on this female. The trust is broken. Now it becomes a hard relationship, right? I go up the shop. She's counting time. And the same principle, trust with the police force, where you go into a space and say, I don't know if I can trust them, to deal with the situation. And I think the thing I've been looking at, Gaz, and I don't know what they do in the police force, but how can you be in a position if you can't control your emotions and you're the leader within the community to be that person who's about controlling your emotions? It blows me away. I'm like, how can they have someone in that space that does that? Because if you can't control your emotions, that could have, you hit the person the wrong way. Nades would know this. People have died in boxing from a hit in the wrong position.
I take on board the point that you guys are making. I think it's a valid point that with power comes responsibility, and
that's what I'm talking about.
Cops have got a heap of power, and if they abuse that power, it does build resentment, and resentment, it just escalates, doesn't it?
And then the trust is gone, the respect is gone, and I talk to people. You sit down at coffee, and you hear people saying these cops are out of hand, or stuff the coppers, and you'll hear those conversations, and that's a dangerous situation then for the community, because someone's family's going to need help, and they're not going to get it. At a point in time, stuff the police are going to come and do something.
And I'm sure the counter point is that if you come across a good cop, it can change your thinking as well.
I'll give you the greatest example. When I say I changed my life, Gaz, a lot of the ways I changed my life, just up the road, funnily enough, the bail sergeant up there knew me quite well, and he'd talk with me, not to me. So you shouldn't be doing crime, Jeff. I knew that, right? But give me some tools to change my life, and he'd say, what do you want to be, and do you know how to do that? What about if you went to this place and that? Do you know that this? And he had all these answers for me, and I'd take away values. I'd be like, stuff you, but underlying, I'd be like, well, that's a great value as a human being to have. How he spoke to his staff. I'd speak to my mates like that. Those sorts of things that I'd never, where we'd be swearing at one another, disrespectful. So I'd stop the swearing. I started it, and everyone would be like, why is Jeff, on one thing I noticed with you, Jeff, you don't swear. And it was just how he conducted himself, and he never said it to me. I'd just watch.
And it's interesting that still resonates with you, because that would have been a long, long time ago.
And it helped me change my life, right? And you just know that how they conducted themselves versus a copper that would get me and just, I was handcuffed at one point around a pole and given it to, and that was, I accepted, whatever, that's just how it was. you reckon I'm going to listen to that cop? I was like, stuff you,
It's
you know?
not making you a better person.
I'm
is it?
thinking, I hope something bad happens to you as a young kid. You think you're tough. That was my mentality versus the bail sergeant is like, you know, do you like coming here? And it would get you to go into a space of your brain you never accessed before. And I go, no, I don't really. And he's like, what could you do differently? And like, he changed me without saying, I'm going to change you, Jeff. Just conversations, human conversations.
Respect.
And respect was built. Then
Yeah,
I still had, back in those days, I ain't talking to you, but I trusted what he was telling me about how I could change my emotions. And I went, you know what, I actually feel better even just talking about it.
Yeah.
And that was a level that you could still work on a human level. And I still had the police barrier up, obviously not saying anything to the police at that point in time. But it flipped me as a human being. And that, what value is that to the community? So my advice to police officers out there, well, like, just chat to people like normal humans, and no matter how dark they are, come in and control your own emotions, and you actually flip the hardest criminal.
Can make a difference.
Yeah, and you look at, there's so many, I won't mention names, that have gone through and they've come on your podcast, and different conversations, different times, whether it was prison officers, whether it was police officers that we don't talk to and they're the enemy and so forth. You don't have to dob anyone in, but you're taking values, qualities.
Important point. Nader, would you have the same type of experience where police have treated you poorly or
you know,
well?
when I was a kid, yeah, definitely. But you know, it's the way you want to be an arsehole, it's going to happen, you know. Or if you're going to come up, and it flips both ways too. He can be, you know, it's just, if you're not doing the wrong thing, it's not going to bother you. That's why I look at it.
Stay
I've
away
spoken
from
to my
it.
boys. My boys, I've got 3 boys. They're past their teenage years now. Thankfully, never been in trouble. But same thing. If you're gonna go down that path, expect. If you're doing the right stuff, thankfully that word, sport, etc., you have nothing to worry about. There's nothing to look at. Don't need to look over your back.
Okay.
Find your passion and follow that.
That's it.
And they'll drop off you, like in a heartbeat.
Sounds good. Not always easy to do. I sort of look at both of you and think, well, yeah, your lives would have gone in a direction if I had to put money, if I was a betting man, which
Dead
I'm
or
not.
jail. Dead or jail.
Yeah,
So everyone said that from school days. Dead or jail.
And I asked Nate this question up so everyone understands it. You got your son who's Australian champion now, as I said, congrats before, but someone does something to your other kid and you respond to it really badly and something happens and you're serving 20 years, what would it make your son, who's Australian champion, happy? And that's how it sees response. That was me, guys.
Yeah.
And we'd never thought about it. We just like survival. Get money, get food, get a roof over our head, and talking to needs. We're friends outside of this. I know what he's like as well. That was our thought process. We just weren't educated, Nade's anger got in the way of maybe the great family education he had. I didn't have that. And it doesn't make it right. It just means that I had to start to rebuild myself, and I did that myself. So 16, I started to change, and by 36, I'd changed. And it's like the old weight loss. I'm going to lose some weight this year, but 20 years later, you still, your weight's going up and up. It's hard to change those ingrained behaviours, thoughts, and beliefs. And we're living proof that it can happen.
Living proof that you can change. And I think, Nader, you've said that you wouldn't even recognise yourself.
No, I wouldn't recognise that person.
When you're
I was
that angry person.
I was an evil, angry, very, very angry, malicious person.
Well, you're lucky then the video, I'm going to press play, of when you first walked in the gym and that young guy did the tick-tack. No one would recognise
where
it's
that
you.
video is. Oh, man. And street fights, street fights do I had thousands of street fights, but whatever it may be. But, different to boxing.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to do it in boxing. That made me even more determined, to get in there. And then slowly, I spun. I was lucky at John Lewis's gym. We had the best fighters training out of there. Great experience. So, you get towed up slowly over time. You'd be catching all these guys, and you'd be the dude doing the good.
It's a good life lesson, bud, isn't it?
It is. You don't give up.
Whether it's boxing or anything, it's an analogy that can be used time and time again. You don't give up.
You don't give up.
You take your knocks, and you will progress.
Keep going forward.
Yeah, it's a good,
Very important.
powerful message.
Love that.
Well, guys, thanks for coming on. I'm also going to be speaking to Tony Hoang and Russell Manser. I don't know if you guys know them or have done any time, but
Yeah.
they've got different backgrounds and stories,
Yeah.
and have spent some time in juvenile
Awesome.
detention and
Good guys, great guys.
also the prison, but turning around and doing some positive stuff. And what I really want to achieve here is show people that things can be done and sort of push what you guys are doing, because I think it's so important. Because I'm looking at life from a cop. How do I make a difference in the world of crime now? Now I'm no longer a cop, and I think if we can prevent it by steering people in the right path, it means so
Mate,
much.
I see a lot of these guys living that life, and they don't feel that they can turn it around. And that's why I speak to them. Then they look at me. I explain my situation to them, and then they believe. Then they can. Jeff does the same thing. He turned it around. I turned it around. You can do it. There's no reason why you can't. Believe in yourself. It's about belief and choices.
Comes down to like, doesn't matter where you start. It's about how you finish. And I say this to corporate people, billion dollar organisations and the workers within it, leadership groups, and I say it to people on the streets, the blokes we've grown up with that are still caught up in that world. Doesn't matter where you start. It's how you finish.
Well,
100%.
that's a good way for us to wrap it up here. But you guys have got the credibility from the old ways, and you've turned your life around. So congratulations.
Thanks. I appreciate
you.
it. Thanks for having us.
Cheers.
Thank you.